right. Welcome everyone to the Sober Heathen podcast. I am Scott. I am sober. I am the sober heathen. I am very happy to be here again today. Having two guests today, willing to show their experience, strength, and hope, and in hopes of helping the next person and truly helping ourselves. So since I try to keep this as honest and authentic as possible, I double booked today. I fucked up. I'm not going to freak out about it. Let the guys know that this is going to end up being a three-man crew today. They've been very kind and understanding. It's still going to be good. It's still going to be great. And then these guys will come back at another time, and we'll get to talk individually. So today I have Robert and Dan. Welcome both of you to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking time to be here. Yeah, so we got Robert. Robert, where are you from, man?
I am originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I've been living in Hickory, North Carolina since 1995.
Beautiful. I've always wanted to go to North Carolina. I hear the beaches are amazing. It'll happen probably when I'm in my 70s or so, but it'll happen. How about you, Dan? Where are you from, buddy? Where are you coming to us live from?
I'm Hertfordshire, so just outside of London, England.
Oh my God, accent's badass. I love it. Always wanted to go to London too. I mean, it's one of those places that it's like if you get a chance to go, you have to go, right? Like,
Definitely.
London and Egypt are like, I mean, two dreams. If I make it to either one of those places, I can die a happy man. So, all right, enough babbling from me. Let's, Robert. So, what's your sobriety date? Tell us a little bit about yourself. You can go into as much or a little detail as you want, brother.
Well, my sobriety date is actually May 8th, 2022. So I just recently picked up a year. I have been in and out of 12-step recovery since I was in my early 20s. I realized that there was an issue when I was about 18 years old. I started finding myself losing control. Probably had lost control before that, but I didn't realize it. So I was in and out of the rooms. But what I found was that I was not applying the principles that were being presented to me with any regularity. And I would go out and, I'd get a little bit of clean time, sobriety, what have you. And then I would go back out and see if I could figure this thing out again. And that has been a failed strategy for me. So I am getting ready to turn 56. I had a stroke in 2019, and that kind of was a wake-up call. I mean, I was just praying that, I would get it together before something bad happened, but I was expecting something, the magic wand or whatever, to zap me, and that has not been the case. So
Right.
Once I had my stroke, I started going to outpatient rehab and started learning some coping skills and got reintroduced to AA and decided that I was going to actually try it the way that it was supposed to go. Got a sponsor, started working steps, struggled here and there. I'd make it like 60 days and then go back out and celebrate, which is not a good recipe for staying sober. Eventually I had a friend of mine that actually I used to buy drugs from, and he got in a lot of trouble, and part of his rehabilitation through the state of North Carolina was he had to go to 12-step meetings, and he was going to Narcotics Anonymous. I had been in both programs, so he was kind of apprehensive. He'd never been to a meeting before. And I was doing a 90 meetings in 90 days in AA, and my sponsor wasn't picky about what 12-step recovery I went to as long as I could make it to a meeting. So he asked me if I'd meet him at a meeting, and I went in and got hooked up with some people and kind of transitioned to that program. It was really cool because my AA sponsor, I kind of wanted him to sponsor me in NA. He wasn't super familiar with it. And so I felt bad because he was a cool guy and he was really helping me. And I said, I told him I didn't know what to do. And he said, pick up a white chip and do the deal, man. So that was encouraging. I ended up getting an NA sponsor and still stumbled a little bit. Got 60 days and then went out to a movie with my son, and they had my favorite beer. and I decided that I was going to just drink one, and I did successfully just drink one. I got the the phenomena of craving, but the beers at the movie theater were prohibitively expensive. So because I'm a tight ass with money, I decided if I was going to spend 16 bucks on two beers, I could probably invest it wisely at a grocery store. But I didn't end up doing that. But when I told my sponsor in NA that I had drank, and he informed me that I was going to, have to reset my sobriety date, I decided that I was going to get my money's worth on that white chip. So I went out again and had a wild night, and then came back in the next day, and then that was the 22nd. I mean the not the 22nd. It was May the 8th of 2022, and I have worked this program, gone to meetings, and work steps. The biggest thing for me was when I learned to pick up the phone and call people. I had struggled with that my whole entire life. Didn't want to call anybody and tell them myself. Didn't want anybody to talk me out of it. Didn't want people to know what I was doing. But I found that this is a feeling disease for me, and I drank over my feelings. I used over my feelings, whatever I had to do to numb them. And now I call people and I share what I'm going through, and I can get those feelings kind of knocked out a little bit and learned how to deal with them. So, that's my biggest suggestion for anybody who's new in this program or struggling. Calling people, they've been telling me for 30 years to call people. And when I started to call people, that's when I saw the turnaround. So, I'm grateful that I haven't drank or used any substances for a year, and I'm just planning on continuing to work this program. So
Yeah,
that's about it.
yeah, that's really awesome, Robert. 1 year. I mean, I know in early sobriety, for me, a month seemed like an eternity. 90 days seemed impossible, and I could not fathom reaching 365 days. So, I mean, that is a true feat, man. And I hear a lot of relatable things in your story. And I got a bunch of questions for you coming up. So thank you for sharing. Let's want to make sure Dan gets in here. Dan, welcome. And same thing, man. What's your sobriety date? How things going? Tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Thank you very much. So today I'm 40 days sober. It's it's never been drugs for me. It's always kind of been the beer or drink. Believe it or not, career-wise, I actually co-manage a pub and a hotel. So I'm with alcohol all the time. Some people would find that near impossible. For
Yep.
me, it's been fun. There's been days I've had really bad days at work, and I'll finish work and have a couple of alcohol-free beers. And I've realised it's not the alcohol that I've been craving as such. Maybe it was just the taste of that beer, because you associate beer with relaxation or lots of different other kind of feelings. In society, we're driven to associate drinks/drugs with any occasion. So if it's a birthday, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving for you guys, a funeral or wedding, there's always alcohol flowing. There's always alcohol involved.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been my journey so far. Like I do get an element of imposter syndrome, because yourself, Robert, you've reached just over a year. So congratulations, you've done amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. But then I think back to myself and I go, 40 days is nothing in comparison. But everyone who's on a sober journey, once upon a time, were at 40 days. So everyone's been there, and you've got to get to 40 days before you reach your 41st, 42nd, and so forth. I've always had a kind of unhealthy relationship with, I say alcohol. It's never really been spirits. It's always just been lager with beer, Goes back from even when I was a teenager. So I'm 33 now. Started drinking when I was 16, 17. It's been kind of periods of times where I've got a couple of weeks, but it got to the point I was drinking every day. Now, it wasn't drinking publicly sat in a pub or at a bar, as you guys call it. It was finishing work and sitting by myself and opening cans of beer, you know. But I'd go to the shops or supermarkets, we call it. I get pint cans of lager. Right at the beginning, I buy myself 4, so I'd have 4 pints, relax, unwind. Before I realised it, I found myself buying 8 in case I wanted 5 pints, maybe 6 pints, but it'd finish at 8, and it went to 12 in case I wanted 9 pints, 10 pints. So before I kind of realised it, I'm drinking anything between 9 to 12 pints 6 days a week. Now, over here, so what, 4 pints is probably about £6.50. So you do the maths, that's 13, that's £20 a day, 6 days a week. You do the maths, it's over £500 a month. But you don't realise it until you add up the numbers and realise how much money you're actually spending, you know? And you're not doing yourself any favours. I was putting on a lot of weight. I was destroying kind of my mental health, if you like. And time and time again, I've had not friends as such. My old man, so my dad, used to always say to me, "Why do you drink so much?" And I was like, "I don't. This is normal." And he's like, "It's not." And he'd kind of he'd pick up on how quickly I'd sit and drink a pint of beer, you know. And it's you used to think, oh, you're just nagging, you're just you're having a pop, you know, you're having a go. But now in hindsight, he's only saying it obviously because he cares. He picked up on the signs. He kind of realised what was going on and what was happening, and never really approached it. But my old man's not a man not a man of many words, you know. He'll go to a family wedding, or I'm out with my dad and my sister tonight. Gonna go and see a tribute show at a local theatre. I'm gonna go for some dinner before, but he'll sit there. He won't say it. It'll be me and my sister having a conversation. Every so often he'll chip in and add to that conversation. Now, for him to really realise what was going on and point it out, it was kind of poignant, you know. And in hindsight meant a lot. I could sit and delve into like proper detail about my behavioural patterns and what I was doing. I was isolating myself, and yeah, it just wasn't healthy. I don't really know what made it click or what the moment was, but I put a weight on. There's a picture that I'll share to you guys, maybe on Twitter or social media. You guys will see it. But I was taking kind of selfies and realised that my skin was getting very red. I was looking so tired, massive bags under my eyes, run down. My sleeping pattern was all over the place. I just looked and felt like shit, you know. But so it was a case of just deciding to do something about it. Now, every Easter Sunday, so Easter Sunday over here, we go to my sister's house. We have a meal. But due to my working commitments, this was Saturday, or 40 days ago. And it got to that Monday because I'm that type of guy that everything new needs to start on a Monday, you know? So, yeah, from that Monday afterwards, I was like, right, I'm not doing it anymore. I bought myself a static exercise bike, which I do 10K on every day.
Nice.
Not every day, 6 days a week. And I just replaced the alcohol with doing that. So it's kind of a whole new routine, you know? Over the past week, maybe 2, it's got a little bit complacent because when you're working, I don't know, a 12 or 13-hour shift, I'm the type of guy where I refuse to get out of bed. Any earlier, I need to get out of bed to sit there and do exercise, you know. But for the podcast today, I got it done. So I got it done in 19 minutes. And yeah, feeling good.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and following your Twitter and seeing the selfies that you post, you can see the change happening. I think that's really awesome. It's without making it sound like all soft and mushy because we're men, right? But it's brave to do that shit. It's brave to put yourself out there and show those things. You know, I need to remember that myself. You know, we're our own hardest critics, right? So,
100%, yeah.
And I gotta say, man, maybe this is meant to be because I'm having a lot of fun listening to this, and fun might be a weird word to use, but I'm hearing so much myself through your guys' talking. I know other people when they listen to these things, they can relate. You know, Robert, you talked about to get a little time and see if I can do it again. You know what I mean? I remember, getting 30 days or getting 2 weeks and be like, shit, I'm not going to go back to the way it was. I'm going, I've realized how bad it was finally. You know what I mean? Uh, you know, uh, Talk about how easy it was to convince yourself that it was going to be different this time. And this is to both of you guys. In your relapses, Robert, you can go first. Talk about how easy it was to convince yourself that this time was going to be different.
Oh, the thing that really tripped me out about it was that, I would always feel like crap in the morning, and I would make up my mind when I woke up that I wasn't going to drink. And, but for me, what I've seen in my patterns is that I drank at night. So I was kind of the same
Yeah.
way he was sharing. I'd get off work. And so around here, the liquor stores close at 9 p.m. and I was delivering pizzas. And so I wouldn't really think about drinking all day long. And then it would get close to 9 o'clock. And all of a sudden, I had a sense of urgency. I had to get a
Oh,
delivery that was close to the liquor store. And I'd have to pop in there because, I would tell myself I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight if I don't have something to drink. And so then I would just, I tried to moderate by just buying a pint of vodka. But the thing is, you can buy beer here till like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I mean, I'd smash
yeah.
that, and then I'd be in my car driving back up to the store. But it just blew me away because every single day I would make up my mind that I wasn't going to drink, and then I was just in the routine of drinking. And then what he was sharing about, it just incrementally gets worse. I would get a pint, and then I would only, I was only going to do it this many days a week. And I was just trying to come up with a magic formula for how much. And, as long as I don't do this drug, as long as I only drink this much, it'll be all right. And
Yeah,
it's just,
because
it's
yeah,
crazy.
going and getting a pint and running around, that you used a great word, urgency. Like I did the same thing. I drank at night, and the urgency, all of a sudden, I'm like, every morning I'd wake up, I'm not fucking drinking today. I'm done. I feel like shit. I'm sick and tired of feeling like this. And then it clicks, and that urgency is like, oh shit, I didn't get alcohol today. I got to find a way to get out of this house, to get to the liquor store and get it here before this thing closes. How about you, Dan? Can you relate to any of that?
Yeah, 100%. It'll be a case of making sure, like our supermarkets around here. I live in a village. The one in the village closes at Tesco's closes at 11. Um, and even if I've been busy, I found myself sending one of the guys who works behind the bar, giving him some cash or giving him my card to go to a shop and grab me 4 beers because I knew I only had a couple upstairs in the fridge.
Sure.
So it comes down to patterns. And even if I look back to, I don't know, I'm 33 now. So even if I think back to early 20s or even late teens, I found myself smuggling drink into my mum and dad's house or hiding a case of beer under my bed, so they couldn't see it. And it was a case of just then when they've gone out to work, put them in a bag and chuck them in the bin. So yeah, it was just kind of behavioral structures and the stuff I was doing was crazy. Now sometimes I tell myself that I was gonna give up drinking, and that'll be like Robert said, in the morning when you feel rough, you feel like shit, and it's that'd be fine. Some days I wouldn't drink for 1 or 2 days, but as soon as the bloating goes down in your stomach, as soon as that kind of that hungover, grouchy feeling goes, you're like, right, okay, back onto it and get on drinking some beers again. But it's hard to really describe what's different this time. But it's
It is.
yeah, a lot of people just say it needs to click,
Mhm.
and it's terribly cliche, but yeah, I guess it's the case.
Yeah, I totally agree, Dan. I don't know what happened. I mean, and I want to talk about this too because consequences. Robert, you talked about having a friggin' stroke in 2019. I ended up in March of 2022. I was in the hospital in 30 days span at least 5 times. Woke up in the ER, not just had to go there. I woke up, had no idea how I got there, tube down my throat, strapped to the bed, all kinds of crazy shit. And none of that deterred me. And then it was just one day, it was like, all right, I had enough. So, you know, talk about, I think talking about consequences, whether it's physical or, something with the law or whatever, so talk a little bit about, you had the stroke, and then kind of, how did you talk yourself back into going back?
Well, after I had my stroke, I mean, I really thought that was going to be the rock bottom that was going to help me finally do what I knew I needed to do. And they took my driver's license away because in North Carolina, you lose your license when you first have a stroke and you have to wait like
Oh,
6 months and then go get evaluated. So I was stuck at my house. So I found myself taking Ubers up to the bar to meet up with my drug dealer. And I was just like, okay, so obviously this didn't stop me. So then, I called a helpline from because I got Medicaid insurance from when I was in the hospital because my bills were so high. And I called an 800 number, and they hooked me up with the outpatient rehab place, and they were coming and picking me up and taking me to the meetings. They put me in an intensive outpatient rehab. But I mean, I couldn't believe it. I had a stroke. It scared the shit out of me, but I was still doing drugs and getting drunk because the pandemic started and I was stuck in my
yeah,
house and I was depressed, and I had friends that would go get liquor for me and bring it to me because they felt sorry for me. And obviously, that's not really something a friend does, but I had connections like that. And I was actually selling a little bit of weed at the time, so people would be on their way over to my house to buy some drugs, and I'd be like, hey man, stop and get me some beer.
yeah,
So I mean, it's a mindset, and I'd been doing it for 30 some years, so I was just stuck in it, the lifestyle. And I thought that I needed to drink, and I thought that I needed to do drugs, and it wasn't. And I mean, the talk about chronic relapsers, and I hear old timers that get irritated when you say that, and people that you're just drinking because you want to drink. Well, yeah, I mean,
duh,
the only expectation that you can have for somebody who's an addict is that they're going to do addictive things. So, I mean, if they're
yeah,
not, that's a change. So, I mean, making it 30 days and going back out, it became another pattern. But all I ever wanted to do was just drink once a month. So I was like, hey, I finally got that, but it was white knuckling it. And then when I made up my mind that I was not going to drink or do drugs no matter what, that's when it changed for me. It didn't make it easy, but I mean, I have to wake up every morning and decide that I'm not going to do anything today. And then I have to, work my program and call people. And, it's a process. But as long as I continue to be, I thought about, because they're like just for today or one day at a time or whatever. I was talking to an old timer, and I told him I was finally starting to get that. And he laughed and he said, what we don't realize is we were just living one day at a time before. We didn't care about whether we were going to have booze tomorrow, as long as
yeah,
we had something today. And
yeah,
I mean, that really opened my eyes. And I had a lot of discipline. I could think outside the box. I could get what I wanted. I could, manipulate, get money when I didn't have money. So I mean, I had a lot of discipline. I was just putting it in the wrong direction. And now that discipline is that, now that I've gotten some time under my belt and I feel so much better, my relationships have improved. I have a son that's getting ready to turn 19, and he is a big pain in the ass. But I mean, we get along a lot better. He respects the fact that I'm trying to do this thing, and I know that I can screw all that up. If I go back out and start living the way I was, not only might I potentially kill myself, but I'm just going to blow everything that I've gained to this point. And so I have to keep that in mind. Like today we were talking about before the podcast. Now I've struggled today. I got shit going on at work. I got a boss that's younger than me. I don't think she's very good at her job, and I'm negatively impacted by her decisions. But, I don't have any control over what she does. So I can go back to old behaviors and be an asshole and try to get her in trouble. Never, ever has that worked over
yeah,
my lifestyle. Never got along with bosses, don't do good with authority figures. But today I can worry about me. And so I just have to stay in the solution and be like, what can I do the problem is me. If I can't accept this situation, what can I do differently? And so, I have tools today. I only had one tool before. It was get loaded, and it didn't
Yeah.
solve anything, but that was my tool.
No.
So today I have other tools in my toolbox and I'm learning to utilize them. So, life's different today.
No, yeah, man. I think a lot of people can relate with what you just said. And when the old timers say, well, you just want to drink, it's like, no shit. Like, we wouldn't drink if it didn't feel good and we didn't enjoy it. I mean, that's the whole point. I want to drink. I just know I can't. I can't because it controls me, it consumes me, and everything falls to shit when I do it. So if you're being honest and they're being honest, they want to fucking drink too. If I could drink like a normal person, I'd fucking do it, but I can't. One thing I wanted to go back to, Dan, for you, man, is, and I catch myself doing this shit all the time too. I said it the other day, I think it was in the podcast yesterday, maybe. I said, oh, I only got 8 months. And it's like, wait a minute. Only. This is the longest I've been sober since I picked up a drink, since 20 years ago when I picked up the first one. 40 days is fucking awesome, dude. And like, that's why this podcast is open to anybody. If you have 3 days, if you're picking up your 24-hour chip and you want to come on the podcast and talk about it, do, because this connection, and you guys have talked about it. You guys talked about it. AA is your connection, Robert. You got a connection, Dan, with exercising and posting things on social media. You got that good connection. Robert, you're posting things too. 40 days, 24 hours, it's all amazing, and it's all something that should be celebrated, and we should not cut ourselves down at all by saying only, because some bitch, we could not be here, and just hearing the stories today, we know that. Dan, you talked about your dad. It was picking up signs. A lot of times people around us, they know what's going on and they understand the severity of it far before our clouded judgment can ever realize that. The nicest thing that my dad said, the closest thing to I love you that my dad said in my entire life, was I was in the hospital and he came in and he gave me a hug, and my brother had just passed away. And he like gave me a hug and he said, I don't want to lose you too. And that was like, that hit me, and it was like, all right, I'm done. Well, I wasn't done, but talk about a little bit more, like your dad pickups, talk a little bit more about your dad, and how, I guess the question is, was he pushing it? Was he strongly suggesting it? And
Yeah, of course.
where's your relationship right now?
Yeah, the relationship's great right now. I see a lot more of my dad over the last, I don't know, since I stopped drinking, over the last kind of 40 days. I'd always find that we'd have family engagements, and I'd always find a reason to either cancel, or I'd be quite stubborn and laid back in the sense that I wouldn't make plans in the first place. So I kind of go long periods of time without seeing family, and that was due to bad habits. That was due to drinking and stuff. And I think the key kind of message as well is just kind of being honest with myself, same as you guys, being honest with yourselves, and being upfront, not kind of hiding things. Obviously, Robert, you've been through and you're on the AA program. You had your stroke. Scott, you obviously found yourself in hospital. I've luckily never had any of that happen to me. I had someone reach out to me today asking what I'm doing to stay sober, or what programs am I using, and none is the kind of the answer. I haven't kind of gone to meetings. I'm not an overly religious guy, so I know a lot of meetings you go to can be based on religion, or kind of an upper power, or praying, or God. That kind of for me, I guess, wouldn't work, I guess. And that's why platforms like this are so good, because you can sit and you can be honest, you can be open, and there's no judgment there, which is fantastic. Touching base on what you said about my relationship with my dad, December 2020, my mum passed away, and I always had a lot more in common with my mum compared to my dad. for no other reason. I don't think anybody chooses that. Nobody chooses who you have more in common with or anything like that. But yeah, Dad's done amazing. He's done fantastically well. Have you heard this? It's something I've never said to him face to face or over a text message or on the phone. But yeah, he's done really well. I've got my sister who's 2 years older than me. I've got a little nephew who's only 4. My nephew's the heartbeat of the family now, which is great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna brain fart because that was really good there at the end. Yeah. Yeah. The AA is great. I've shown it in my big book on the videos before. I had soft cover. It was like a rainbow with tabs and highlighters, and now I got hardcover. I've been through it over and over and over again. I'm a fan of AA. I'm not a fan of when I go into AA and it turns into a sermon. So that's a turn off, but that's a rare thing. But I love the fact, and I love it when people come on that are doing it differently, because it doesn't have to be one way. You can try AA, and if you don't like it, then try something else. As long as it's working for you, that is all that matters. And I'm with you. Obviously, I go heathen, right? So the heathen, it literally means that I don't follow any of the big 3 religions. I don't follow Allah, I don't follow Christ, and I don't follow Yahweh. And I want people on here that do follow those 3, because somebody else might follow those too, and you might say something that can help people recover. And that's what this is all about. So I'm really glad, Dan, that you're open on that, because exercise is doing it for. I've seen that happen, in stories from a lot of people. You get in the gym, and all of a sudden that dopamine hits in. That you get that fix from being healthy and running and exercising, working out. And I mean, I think that's great. Everything. I mean, anything is possible. What about? Let's see. Sorry, my mind is going everywhere. Because this is such a good conversation. You know what I mean? Oh, Robert, you had said, this is to both of you guys, waiting for that magic wand. I cannot tell you how many times I just told myself, you know what? Something's just going to happen and I'm just going to quit. Something is just going to turn. I'm going to get, find this job that I want, or I'm going to win the lotto and I'm just going to be done. Waiting for that magic wand. Talk a little bit about that. I will go to you first, Dan. Do you have anything where you just told yourself this will change tomorrow, with no evidence whatsoever to suggest it's going to, just expecting it to change on its own?
Yeah, there's no kind of standout moment as such. For me, it was just you get rough, spending near enough all your money on beer, like I say, putting on weight, destroying your mental health. And it'll start on a Monday.
Yes.
Sort of thing. Nothing new starts on a Thursday or a Friday, It's always kind of on a Monday. But then I don't know, that Monday would never come. And I can't sit here and say that I'll never drink again. That's obviously my my aim, I guess. My kind of original target when I stopped in my head was 100 days and see how I feel then.
Right.
I'm going on a holiday or vacation, as you guys call it, end of August with my family. And will I have a beer then? Who knows? You can never predict or never tell. I don't plan on it, but as you guys have already kind of touched on, it's one day at a time,
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Robert? Talk about, go back and revisit that magic wand that you're waiting for.
Well, and something that I really related to was the thing with my dad. So my dad drinks, but I don't think he struggles with what I struggle with. And so I was introduced to alcohol at a very early age, because I think that's how he used to bond with his dad.
Yeah.
But I remember one time I was out in California visiting him, and we had a couple beers at the pool, and then I walked across the street to a convenience store, and I bought some tall boys and brought them back. And I thought, it was super cool. Me and my dad were going to have another beer in the hotel room. And he said, I don't want another beer. And I said, what do you mean? I mean, that was so foreign to me. And he said, well, if I drink more beer, I'll get drunk. And I was like, yeah, isn't that the point? So, I mean, and then when I started working the program and I had 60 days, I called him and I was all excited. And he said, well, if you could just drink one, you wouldn't need to go to those meetings. And I said, yeah, you're right. If I could just drink one, that would be ideal. But for me, the magic wand thing was when I got involved in 12-step recovery. In the big book of AA, it talks about the spiritual experience, and I really related that to doing a 4th-step. So I went through the steps several times, and I do my 4th-step, and then I still wanted to drink, and then I was like, okay, I was just waiting, like that was going to be the magic bullet that was going to fix me. And so then that would just bum me out. And then I'd end up going back out and drinking or using again. And then I'd get back in the program. And, what I've realized now is my sponsor now says it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Oh yeah.
So, I feel like I'm having a spiritual experience just because, I think that my higher power lives inside me and I just kind of blocked it off, with
Sure.
all the things that I was doing. And so we're living this life the way that I was meant to live it has been allowing me to experience that spiritual experience that I was waiting for. And one of the other things I'll say is that I really like AA, but the NA program, they go to great lengths to say that, it's not required to believe in any particular God. And, it's higher power can be, the universe or the group or whatever, anything that's more powerful than you. So when I look around the room and I see 20, 30 people that have been doing this deal and they're not using and drinking anymore, obviously they have something that I don't have. So that can be my higher power, is
Yeah.
just reaching out to other people. I've heard of God is a group of drunks. I've heard so many different things. And, the thing is, I see people doing this other ways. And I've said it before, what works for me might kill somebody else. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we have to find our way that works for us. I have friends that guy I was talking about that used to be my drug dealer. He's running marathons and going to the gym and getting healthy and living a different way has been the answer for him. And if I hadn't had a stroke, I was going to CrossFit and working out and stuff before I had my stroke. I can't do that anymore, but I'm eating healthy and I'm just doing things that I've been wanting to do my whole entire life. I weighed 300 pounds. I've lost 60 pounds. I've reversed my type 2 diabetes. I've reversed my
Awesome.
fatty liver. I've lowered my
Awesome.
blood pressure. I'm off all medicines. So, I mean, I didn't get that mountaintop experience all at one time. But I mean, I also didn't crash and burn with using. I moderated over 35 years. So it was like a slow suicide.
Yeah.
And so, this is like a slow ascension up the mountain. As
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
as I keep on climbing and I don't turn around, because the trip downhill is a lot faster than the trip uphill. So,
Amen, brother.
I mean, I'm not going to have a magic wand experience. I'm going to have to do this one day at a time. And
Yeah.
that's just how it works for me.
Yeah, and I think that's important to remember because, we want instant gratification, right? So you get that pint and you get it to your lips and you get it in your gut. And I know for me, I won't speak for you guys, but I know for me, it was instant gratification. There was no possible way that 2 seconds after I chugged a half pint of peppermint schnapps or vodka that I was drunk and buzzed, but just the process was I knew it was coming and it was instant gratification. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a journey. It's not a destination. Dan is exploring his journey right now. He's being very honest with that. And I think that's a huge step. He's like, well, in 100 days, we'll see what's going on. I got a holiday coming up, see what's going on. And that's just being brutally honest. And I think that's a start, right? I mean, you start there and you build on it and you see where it goes. I agree. The people that would go out and have a beer with dinner, I thought were insane. I wouldn't do that. Even as a raging alcoholic, I wouldn't do that because it was like pointless. It's like, I'm not going to waste $4 on a beer when I could use that $4 to get a half pint of cheap vodka. when I leave this place. That's just dumb. We'd go on wine tasting when I was married. We'd go on wine tasting. I'd volunteer to drive because what good is it going to do me to go in and sip on these little cups of wine? That's not going to do anything for me. I'll wait till we get, I'll drive your drunk asses around and then I'll get sloshed later, because it's dumb to just have a beer. I just thought it was dumb. And that still didn't click in my head that that's really shitty thinking, dude. What you got, Dan? You're looking over there like you got something to say, brother. What you got?
No, I was agreeing with you, not going to agree on kind of what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. I think it's, as we've touched on before, about after having a beer, you just become powerless. It's my old man, for instance. He can sit and have 2-3 cans of beer, and then he won't drink them for 3-4 weeks. And he can have a couple of beers, and he's got it nailed. He's got it nailed down. But for myself, as soon as I have one, might not be a case of just one beer. As soon as I have a few beers, that's it. The floodgates open. That's the best way I can describe it. It's as soon as I have a couple of beers, it's one's always too many, shall we say? So it's a case of you either decide to live life without drink at all, or you try and moderate it. But as people always say, moderation never works. It's never worked for me before. So that's why I've kind of given this a go and decided just to. I was having a conversation the other night with my sister, and I haven't got my phone on me. Otherwise, I'd read it out. It's something along the lines of you need to work out what you're doing and what you want. Is this either just a long period of time off the drink and basically detoxing yourself, and to test whether you can do it and to make yourself feel better, or is it a case of this is a long-term thing, you're just not going to drink again? And I replied to her saying that I'd love anything more. I'd want nothing more right now than a beer, because I had a shit day at work.
Yeah.
And my sister put back, you want nothing more than a drink. Is in quite shocked by it. I come back and said, obviously that's a figure of speech more than anything else. But yeah, I'd love a beer now. Yeah. But I know my mindset is what this was 2 days ago, so that would have made it Wednesday. If I had a couple of beers on Wednesday night, you guarantee I would have drunk every night until Monday, because everything needs to start on a Monday, Yeah.
Yeah, and Bill W. says it pretty well in the big book. He found himself, didn't even plan on it. He just found himself in a bar and he had a drink. And then he says, I found myself pounding on the bar. How the hell did this happen again? And, it just comes out of nowhere. And then once it happened, he's like, well, fuck it. Kind of like you were talking about earlier, Dan, you're like, I'll quit on Monday. And then Monday comes and then something happens. And before you know it, you got a pint in you and you're like, all right, well, next Monday, I'm going to get good and fucked up all week now. And that's just the way our mind works, man. And Robert mentioned it earlier too. People talk about triggers, bad days, bad bosses, rough day at work. Those can be things that can lead you into it. But the way I believe it, go ahead.
Because I think what Robert said before about work and bosses and stuff, it's important for me. I'm not sure about you guys, just to make sure you keep continuing to control the controllables. What's the point in stressing and tiring yourself out of something that you can't control? It's pointless. All you're doing is playing games with your own mind, kicking out negative energy. So we all do it as human beings. We're all guilty for it. But I know in hindsight, it's easy to sit here and say don't do it than it is in reality. But it's you're doing yourself no favors. You're not going to solve anything by doing it.
Yeah, and I believe it gets better. For me, it's getting better over time. I can stop and evaluate, okay, is this something that I can change? Is this worth my energy? And I've said it before in one of the Twitter spaces, one of my counselors, John P. Duty, what a great name, right? He would always say in our groups, he would say, okay, so you need to ask yourself something in early sobriety when you're still figuring it out. Does it need to be said? Number one, does it need to be said by me? That's your second question. And then 3, if those first 2 are yes, does it need to be said by me right now? And he said, if you can say yes to all 3 of those questions, then go ahead and say what you're thinking. but I think that's a good platform. Like, you guys are talking about work. Robert, you were talking about your manager or your boss or whatever. I think those are three good questions. Fuck, I just want to tell this person off right now. Well, okay, does it need to be said? Yes, it needs to be goddamn said. Does it need to be said by me? Okay, well, I heard this from somebody else. Maybe it shouldn't be me. You know what I mean? And then you can kind of squash those thoughts as you go.
I agree. I think some of the anxieties as well since stop drinking is you've got to face your emotions as well. I'm not sure about you guys what you used to do. It's if you're pissed off or you're something on your mind, but you don't want to kind of address it,
Mhm.
or you're stressed, have some beers, and 9 times out of 10 you feel better for it. But you wake up the next morning and those stresses, those issues are still going to be there. So now, since stopping drinking, having to face those feelings and face those emotions when you've numbed them with drink for so long, for so many years, it's a case of it's quite nerve wracking. I have a good friend who's a stand up comedian called Dan O'Reilly. He's on a sober journey as well. He's 130 something days now.
Awesome.
He's turned around and said that it's like losing a friend. It's whether you're celebrating, whether you're commiserating the drink, or he was on drugs as well, but your drink/drugs has always been there as your friend. You know, it doesn't matter kind of what you're celebrating or what the mood is, what the occasion is. That friend's always been there. Now, when you cut that out completely, there's a void, there's a gap. For a while, you don't know how to feel, or you don't know how to get around that. Now, like I said yourself, mine's kind of been with the exercise. Robert's obviously got his techniques on what works for him, but and yourself obviously as well, Scott. But yeah, there's it opens your eyes. Let's say that when you stop drinking, and you've got to find new patterns, new behaviours, just new ways of thinking as well.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the amount of time and energy that I put into planning out my day around getting alcohol and getting drunk. There was a lot of time and energy spent on that, and so something has got to fill that void, as you said. Something's got to go in its place, because it all of a sudden I don't wake up and I'm like, okay, so I have to do this, and this today. So, um, my fiance's got to go with me for this, so I can't get it then. So, hmm, you know, oh, maybe we need some fertilizer, or we need some pool stuff to put in the pool, or maybe later I'll see if she wants some ice cream and I'll volunteer to go get it at the store or whatever. It was just a constant manipulation all day, every day. How about you, Robert? Can you relate to that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, my big thing was since I was selling weed, and I didn't want my kid to know, it was I had an excuse to go to the grocery store or meet somebody somewhere. And every time I went somewhere in the car, I had to stop and get some alcohol. And for me, like the thing he was talking about, like one is too many and thousands never enough. You know, alcohol wasn't at the end. It wasn't really what I wanted. I was using it to kind of check out. But I'll tell you what, 3 beers, man, and everything's out the window. Then I'm wide ass open.
Yeah.
I've let my addiction out to create chaos in my life. So I have no control after I do that. So all I can do today is just not pick up that first whatever it is and put it in my body. And something Dan was also talking about is, I started in my mid-teens drinking, so I never learned to deal with my emotions. And if I got pissed off or upset or my feelings got hurt or things didn't go my way, I would get high, I would drink, whatever. And so now in my 50s, I'm learning stuff I probably should have learned at 15 of how to deal with this stuff. And I mean, it's literally, I've heard it said in recovery that the age you are when you start using is the emotional and mental age that you are until you stop. So I thought about that with my son. We get into so much chaos with each other, but I think mentally we're about the same age. So we're like two teenagers arguing. But when I used to get into it with him and I'd get in a shouting match, I'd hop in the car and go over to the store and get some beer and sit on the couch and chill and drink it, and everything would be all right then. But it didn't solve the problem. It was still there the next day. And so now, even though it doesn't go swimmingly well every second, if something's going on, I've learned to talk to him about it, and sometimes we just agree to disagree and he goes back in his room. But at least I'm like, look, I really wish you wouldn't do this, or it bothers me when you do that. And he does the same thing with me. I mean, he got in trouble for something a couple weeks ago, and I drive him to work, and I told him that I was gonna start making him walk to work for a week to teach him, respect. And he calmly he said, "Look, first of all, that's bullshit. You're just acting out of your emotions, and you're mad at me. And if you want to tell me it's inconvenient to take me to work, that's fine. But if you're trying to teach me a lesson about respect, I call bullshit on that." And what I mean, so he's learning from my recovery to set boundaries and speak the truth. And I don't really always like what he says, but when I said, "Look, I'll take you to work tomorrow, and I'm going to talk to some people about it and revisit this." And all the suggestions that I got from people in the program were basically what he said. And I didn't like that. I had to swallow my
Yeah.
pride and be like, well, I could be wrong on this one. But I mean, we came to an agreement and some kind of a compromise that worked for both of us. And so that's what I'm doing different today. I didn't have to go up to the store and get a 12-pack and get sloshed and feel like shit the next day. And so, I mean, it's just doing things differently than I've been doing them for 35 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You only got to change one thing in sobriety, right? Right, Robert?
Everything.
One thing is everything. It's that freaking simple. I know that when I finally came clean, I came to a point, all I could think about in treatment, well, and that was part of the problem, was getting my kids back into my life and getting my ex-fiance back. And, that was so focused. And my sponsor told me to quit calling for a while. And I did that. And that helped tremendously because I could focus on myself. But there were still lies that I was maintaining, even as I started to progress in recovery, and they were eating me alive. And so finally one day I was like, you know what, that time that you thought I was drinking, and I still swore, a week ago that I didn't drink that time that you thought I was, I did. Every time that you thought I was drinking, I did. And I knew when I said this, and if you listen to the Sober Dad podcast, he kind of talks about this himself with his wife, he just decided to come clean with everything. There was a risk that that would be it. And I got to a point of being sick and tired of carrying that burden, that if that's what it was, then that's how it had to be. And I'll tell you, our brains and our disease will tell us that it's going to go bad every time that you are honest, every time that you want to, share your feelings, it's going to go bad. People are going to look down on you. They're going to mock you. They're going to this and that. And it's a lie 99% of the time. And so I came clean, and, yeah, it was a kick to the gut for her, but she realized what I was trying to do. And that was a clean slate, do my step 8 and 9, or well, I guess it'd be 9, making the amends and getting everything out there that I can. And yeah, I just think whenever you're feeling like I'm not sure if I should tell this or I should keep this going, it really is, honesty is the best policy. Have you experienced that in your 40 days?
100%.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead, Dan. I was asking you, have you experienced that at all? Got any
Oh,
comments?
sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's when you said about being open and kind of revealing about what you've been going through to people. Strangely, that's kind of happened organically since I've stopped drinking and gone sober. Granted, it's only been, like I said, the 40 days, but it's it becomes something you talk about a lot, especially for me. I've obviously co-managing a pub and hotel. You're serving people all the time. You have a lot of regulars. A lot of the regulars offer to buy you a beer, and I'm fine. So no, don't worry, mate. I'm not drinking anymore. And then they start asking questions. So before you realise it, you're opening up and talking about it a lot more. I've touch base with my dad and sister. I've been honest about how much I was drinking. I think that probably comes as a bit of a shock. They knew I was drinking a lot, but maybe not to the extent that I was, or drinking as much as I was. But it's good. It's like losing a weight, you know. It's like a weight kind of dropping off your shoulders when they say when you tell someone something that's or you got a problem that you share with someone, that's a problem that's been halved, you know.
Yeah.
And there's less and less that's going around your brain and beating yourself up over it if you open and you talk to people.
Yeah, getting rid of the dead weight. And I mean, we know, I shouldn't say I should speak for myself, but I know that if I carry anything around that's going to, be negative and put a burden on me, the easiest escape, I just found out this morning that my ankle monitor is coming off next month. And, I haven't asked until today because I thought it was coming off on, a month ago, and I didn't say anything. It's just added assurance, and then I found out this morning when the courts called me that I got to wear it until next month. And I would be lying if I said that that's not borderline terrifying, because that's that added accountability. You know what I mean? I have not sat here in these past few weeks that have been absolutely terrible mentally for me and said, you know what'll fix it? Drinking. So I'm extremely optimistic because that is not, every other time I've been on probation, it was like, I cannot wait to be on probation so I don't have to go blow or pee, so I can just fucking drink and just enjoy life again. And that has not crossed my mind. And that is very optimistic in my mind.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you dudes coming on here, man, and being willing to do a threesome, if you will, without making it sound awkward. But you both have great stories to tell. You both are, I am just continually amazed every time I come on. I get anxiety, and I'm like, is this thing going to flow? What do I need to do to make this thing good? And every single time, I don't have to do shit. I just let you guys do all the talking, and it turns out great. So as I said, I'll we'll go around here, and then any final comments that you want to share about yourself or anything, or any advice that's worked for you. We'll do that, but I just want to say again that the door is open for you both to come back at any time. We'll do a solo thing. This is what I do right now, and this is what's keeping me sober. So we started today off with you, Robert, so we'll start with you to end it too, man. Any final thoughts?
Well, something that I really related to was something that Dan said about, he's coming up on a vacation. Will he drink a beer? He's not planning on it. I know that, I had they call them reservations in the program, but, I knew that I didn't think I was going to be able to do this thing. And so I just kept postponing it. I was like, okay, at 90 days, I'm going to drink. And then when I got to 90 days, I was like, well, 6 months I'll drink. Then at 6 months, I said a year I'll drink. And then just picked up a year, and I'm like, well, 5 years maybe, so, I am not telling myself that I can never drink again because I'll freak out. I'll go get drunk today. So I know I can get drunk today if I want to, but thankfully I do not want to. So I only have to worry about today. And as long as I don't drink today, I'll never drink.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Thanks so much, Robert, for that, man. That's great stuff. How about you, Dan? Final thoughts?
I agree. Yeah, when Robert puts it that way, I definitely agree. It's a big bold statement to say I'll never drink again. Some people are adamant, and that's them. That's cool. They can do them. But for me, it's first one was 30 days, which I hit. My next target's 50, then it'll be 100. Like I said, I'm not going to wait till end of August, so you're going to be looking 130, 140 days by that point. So we'll see what happens. We'll review things then. One last thing I do find quite interesting. I was reading the other day and I'm listening to a separate podcast about it. I do believe most people, whether they kind of go what we've been through or not, are addicts. What I mean by that is whether they're addicted to scrolling on their mobile phone. People are addicted to having a coffee in the morning. Some people don't even function without a coffee in the morning, Whether that's I don't know, things like addicted to going to the gym, addicted to energy drinks, addicted to sex, for instance. Every single person's got an addiction within them. And I don't think society explains that enough or tells people that enough. So just because our addiction maybe was beer, or for you guys, drugs, for instance, or beer, then or liquor. But yeah, everyone's got an addiction, and it's only drinking drugs which society tells us is frowned upon. Society actively encourages and supports some of the other addictions, if you like. But yeah, it's a case of not being too hard on ourselves, one day at a time, as you guys have both said, and let's see where life takes us.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And I think that's a great way to end it. And we need to understand ourselves, and I'll say us, because what we're doing right now today is helping remove that stigma, because we never know who's going to listen to this, and we need to humanize addiction to alcohol and drugs, because we are still human. Yeah, it's a shitty thing, and outward appearances like you're a bad person. I don't believe that. I mean, yeah, there's bad people that are addicted too, and we've done bad things, but I think overall, the majority of us are just trying to cope, and we're good people that have made bad choices. And I think the more we talk about it, the less stigma there's going to be. We've talked about that before too, and maybe I'll have you both back on to talk more about that in detail. When you hear drug addict, you hear hard drugs, at least I'm not doing hard drugs. People don't realize that alcohol is worse in more cases than the hard drugs on your body and your brain, especially. And
It's
so
more
there's,
addictive.
yeah, and it's everywhere, so yeah, that's a great point, Dan. And I think we can end on that we're going to end the stigma by continue to talk about it, to humanize it, to show that it's a struggle, and it's a disease like a lot of other things. And we need to pick people up instead of knocking them down. It's not as easy as, if it was as easy as just don't fucking drink. If it was that fucking easy, I would have never had a problem to begin with. You know what I mean? So you're absolutely right. The emotions take over, and we're trying to fix these things. So awesome stuff, dudes. I just, man, I tell you what, dude, I get done with these things, and it's like, it's a shot of dopamine, and like dopamine, it's serenity, it's clarity, it's hope, it's happy. I mean, I just really appreciate you guys being willing to come on here. So hit me up in the DMs on Twitter. And if you want to come back and do a solo thing, I will get it in the calendar the right way this time. And we'll sit down and we'll spend, 40 minutes or an hour individually. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thanks for your time.
Awesome. We'll talk soon. And those of you that are out there listening, please check out the other podcasts and support everybody that's been willing to come on and share their experience, strength, and hope. This is not easy to do. It's not for everybody. But we're doing it for that person that's sitting out there that could be struggling today. So let us know how we did. And if you got any comments or feedback and on to Robert or Dan today, I will make sure that they see it one way or another. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you on the next one.